A thing that I personally lacked for a very long time and I felt was necessary as I was reading about different people and different ideas that they shared with me was the idea of critical thinking. What does that even mean? I actually didn't even know the definition of that word, but when I learned about it and when I discovered a little bit about how it works, I thought it was a very fascinating idea, which was used by people whose biographies I read about, like Barack Obama, Abraham Lincoln, and others whom I admire in many ways, and at least can respect their ideas and how they got to where they got. So, the first thing that I failed to do for a very long time, and I continue to fail doing in many scenarios, is to make decisions which are not well thought of. Many of the reasons for why that is, as I found that to be the case, was I bias my thinking to consider a certain decision better than it actually is. So, for example, when I was making a decision to see what work I wanted to do for the next day, oftentimes when I was angry or frustrated, I would decide to work on tasks that would fulfill my frustration and would make me feel that, I'm progressing, I'm going forward. But at the same time, they would also be often useless to the goals that I have. So the long term view was ignored while the little day to day ideas were put to the forefront. So emotions, feelings of, especially feelings of anger, influence my judgment all the time. And as as I learned what the processes behind that were, I realized that one of the main reasons we make decisions that are impulsive and are unnecessarily silly are confirmation bias and ideas associated with it. So, confirmation bias is the idea that rather than questioning the ideas we have, questioning the thinking, we try to confirm it, which makes sense. And in particular, it means that when we're met with an argument that disagrees with our own, we, for example, completely ignore it, even if it has some merits. Or when we're seeking out information from, say, news sources, we pick out the information which agrees with our own views already. So, as you can clearly see the implications of such behavior, it may not lead to good results because eventually I'll become more and more biased towards one viewpoint, and eventually I won't even have an understanding of the other side. And in many ways, I've seen that to be the case in myself and in others around me. Like, for example, in politics around me, I see people who are thinking of one side and think that it's the best, that, if we did this government policy, if we lower taxes or if we increase taxes, everything would change for the better. But in reality, when I see people and they do fulfill those changes, oftentimes it just continues on to the next problem. So there are so many contradictions, and I've seen such contradictions within my family, within myself, and they are quite prevalent because it is really my failure in many ways to have a lack of critical thinking. And it's our failure as well to lack the ability to say, why is my idea wrong, rather than why is my idea right. That was probably when I realized and encapsulated the idea of confirmation bias with this statement, thinking why is my idea wrong rather than why it's right. It became much easier for me to think, okay, in what cases am I failing to overcome my biases to actually try to make a rational, logical decision towards a goal that I want to pursue. And the biggest place where that happened for me was during my work and what I chose, what I planned, how I planned my work. When I was making a routine, for example, I had certain habits that I liked during work. I was working for 6 hours on this, then for 2 hours on, say, research, and then I'd finish off with a little bit of relaxation with playing the piano or reading a book, and so on. So I had a very routine and scheduled out life, still do in many ways, but its problems were that I felt very understimulated. So I began to lack enjoyment from the things I did because they were so structured and I constantly repeated them and repeated them, which naturally made me feel that there's no stimulation to it, there's no diversity or engagement with new ideas. And that even started to affect my YouTube creation because I began to think, well, if my routine is always the same and I'm always having the same experiences over and over again, then how can I create any sort of positive, share any of my ideas in a way that's interesting to anyone? Because uh, when I tried to generate ideas for new videos, I'd always come up with the same repeating ideas. There was nothing new. So naturally, how could there be something new to share with you guys? And so that was the problem. That was where I lacked critical thinking because I thought, okay, I like this routine. I was comfortable with it. But the thing that I was lacking was considering, okay, why is this routine failing me? How could I improve it to create something that is more fulfilling for me? And recently, I've began to answer this question because I was increasing focus on my desire to think critically, to think in a way that gives me the opportunity to make a rational decision, to make rational choices in the future. So what I tried to do in response to my newfound problem was to begin experimenting and trying out new ways to approach my YouTube creation, to approach my work. So rather than having my routine as I would usually have, rather than having this fixed mindset of what I should do next, I instead began to write down ideas I have over the week and ideas for changing up my routine, for trying something that I never tried before. And my commitment, my desire, the thing that I wanted to do then was to take a couple of these ideas every single week and to start doing them, to actually start trying them out and to undermine the stagnation that I've had for such a long time and which caused me to feel that great understimulation. So this is a work in progress. I will definitely tell you how this is going to go. In fact, in some ways, I've began to try it in this video already. Rather than having my videos over there and making it everything pitch perfect to what I always used to do, I'm making a completely different kind of video, using a webcam, being by the computer, and having this kind of little cheat sheet. So tell me if you enjoyed this idea, if you enjoyed this concept. I hope you had fun with me. And for now, bye.